Well then, welcome. I'm Bob Proctor. You've often heard me say in seminars and speeches I've made that we are truly God's highest form of creation. And I firmly believe that. What makes us God's highest form of creation? What separates us from all the other little creatures on the planet? You know, all the other little creatures on the planet are completely at home in their environment. They blend in. You and I are totally disoriented in our environment. And that is because we've been given the mental faculties to create our own environment. We are truly creative beings. We have perception, the will, reason, imagination, memory, and intuition. 6 higher faculties. We have memory. There's no such thing as a bad memory. Everyone has a perfect memory. Going by Harry Lorraine and Jerry Lucas's book, The Memory Book, you can develop your memory to a phenomenal degree. Everyone has a perfect memory. Most of them have weak memories. Perception. It's how you see things. We know that our perception is our reality. Let's suppose I have a problem. I'll tell you what I do. I take and I write the problem out as clear as I possibly can. I write it out in such a way that if I give it to you, you'd be seeing it exactly the way I'm seeing it. I'll put it in the middle of a table. Then I'll sit and I'll look at it and I'll say, now, is that problem in me or is it on the paper? And I work at it until I get it on the paper and get it out of me. Then I'm looking at the situation, the problem, as a challenge. It's something that I can look at objectively as a stranger might. Then I'll go and I'll sit the other side of the table. I'll physically move and I'll say, how would Napoleon Hill look at this? And I would attempt to get in Hill's energy and get his perception of it. Then I may go sit at another place on the table and I do the same thing. And I might say, how would Thomas Edison look at this? Then I might go and sit at another place and say, how would Henry Ford look at this? And I would mentally look at it and think, if I were them, how would I look at this? I guarantee you, you'll see the opportunity in the problem. That's how you solve it. That's how you use perception. You change. I like the way our good friend Wayne Dyer used to put it.
Yeah,
when you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. Then you have the will. You know, when John Kennedy asked Dr. Werner von Braun what it would take to build a rocket that would carry a person to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth, von Braun answered him in 5 words. He said, the will to do it. You see, the will is that mental faculty that gives you the ability to hold one idea on the screen of your mind to the exclusion of all outside distractions. It gives you the ability to concentrate. When you concentrate, your thoughts increase in amplitude of vibration. Your thoughts become much more powerful. You have the ability to raise and lower your own power through your thinking. Well, that's what the will is for, to hold one idea to the exclusion of all outside distractions that are begging your attention through your senses. Then we have imagination. Napoleon Hill said it's the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force the world's ever known. Do you know the building you're in was imagined nothing but an image in somebody's mind at one time? That's all it was. You have a marvelous imagination. You can create whatever you want, your imagination. And I'm going to tell you something. When you get a picture here, you've gone there. That place exists. There is a place. You've raised yourself, put yourself on a higher frequency of thought. Nothing's created or destroyed. Whenever we build an image in our mind, we're capable of doing it. See, it wasn't too long ago, when somebody had talked about having one of these things, you'd have thought they're out of their mind. Today, they're commonplace. Imagination. Then we have reason. Reason, right reason. Most people reason away their success. Reason is where you pluck thoughts out of the ether. You create thoughts. You can pick up thoughts. Thoughts are floating around, other people's thoughts. Or you can create them. You create them because you've got what's called an inductive reasoning factor. And you pull thoughts and build them together, and you build an idea. And if you don't like the idea, take another thought and add it. You keep adding thoughts till you got the idea you want. Reason. Think. Think. How can I fix this? How can I do that? You do it through thinking. You build an image in your mind through thoughts. Thinking is the highest function that you're capable of. I like the way Anderson put it. He said, when we fully realize that thought causes all, we'll know there's never any limits that we ourselves do not impose. You have intuition. Intuition is that marvelous mental faculty that gives us the conscious ability to pick up vibration, pick up another person's thoughts, to read their energy. Persons are massive energy and a high speed of vibration. That's really what they are. And you can pick up their energy and you can read it. You can tell what's going on. Intuition is God's way of talking to you. That's where the universe, you pick up the vibrations and you can feel it. It's a marvelous, marvelous tool. I have become very intuitive. Usually when you see a person that's intuitive, you say, my goodness, they're psychic, and we look at that as a bad thing. Everyone's psychic. Psyche is the Greek word for mind. You have a marvelous mind. But understand this. The mind is perfect. It can never be damaged. The idea there's mental retardation is a misnomer. Your mind is perfect. It's a matter of developing it. So you have perception, the will, reason, imagination, memory, and intuition. There you have it. They're higher faculties. Study them. We have a marvelous program called The Magic in Your Mind. You might inquire about it. It's Bob Proctor. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. We put a lot of good information up here, and it causes everything in your life to get better. If you'd like us to notify you every time you put a new video.
All right. What is up, guys? You guys can hear me and see me. Can you just let me know? Throw some sevens in the chat. My favorite number. Even just one will suffice. Stoked to be here. Life is good. Thank you, Kenneth. Appreciate you, buddy. Heck yeah, let's go. Thank you, Chai. Or Kai. I don't, not sure how to say your name, but hopefully one of them are right. So today, we're going to go over the 6 higher faculties like Bob Proctor was talking about. If you ever listen to Bob Proctor, he provides such clear and concise information. Chai, thank you. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Good to know. Thank you, Chai. But yes, so Bob Proctor is the guy who started MMX, which is what Nano, if you guys know Nano, is taking over. I think he starts actually tomorrow is his first day. 11/21/22, which is his favorite number, 21, which is kind of crazy that it sets up that way. But yeah, Bob Proctor started the MMX platform. So he is a mindset master, and he loves providing information. So, rest in peace, Bob Proctor. He died, I think, last year. But he has left a legacy of unbelievable information that we all need to tap into. It is so amazing learning from Bob, and you can never get too much of Bob Proctor, to be honest with you. So today, yes, we're going to go over the 6 higher faculties. I always like to start anything that I do with gratitude. Also learned that from Nano. I won't say that's something I came up with myself. But it truly does help. You always start with gratitude, and it just puts you on that high vibration, because gratitude is the highest form of energy. Okay, it produces the ability for you to be grateful for what you have, and then feeling grateful for what you have shows the universe, shows God, shows whoever you believe in, that you are ready for more blessings in your life. And it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Oh, thank you, Ty. I'm grateful for you as well. It's amazing having such a powerful leader on our team that is so knowledgeable in trading, and is just so much living for the people, and especially the people that are loving and are working on themselves, right? We all want to push ourselves, and Ty is one of those accountability partners that really make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do, and consistently pushing ourselves. And it's so amazing. Thank you, Kenneth. I'm grateful for you to be here. I'm grateful for all of you to be here. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for River. I'm grateful for God. I'm grateful for to wake up this morning. It's another amazing day to be alive. It's chilly outside and I absolutely love it. It's so amazing. I love the cold weather. I just get so much more energy when it's cold outside because I feel like I need to move more. And it's just such a blessing that we have and live in an area where the seasons change, right? And it's just a real reflection on the human experience of change and how we are constantly adapting and developing, right? The only constant in life is change. And if you don't focus on the good in change, then it can swallow you up, right? So it's important to be grateful for stuff like that. Um, so today we're going to talk about the six higher faculties. And the six higher faculties are something that um, kind of rewrites most people's knowledge and understanding on um, how they can direct their thoughts and how they can create things that are not actually in their physical space, right? Because most people, the 95%, right, that's kind of what we talk about is the information that we discuss on these calls, the information that we discuss in trading calls, you know, all this mindset that we're, passed down by leaders in the free world. um, they have provided the information, but 95% of the people don't understand, don't know, don't care, don't believe. Most of them don't understand this information, so they are they're victim to the five senses, right? The see, the sight, the hearing, the taste, the smell, and there's another one: hearing, taste, smell, sight. Hearing, taste, smell, sight. And why am I blanking on the last one? Anybody know? Sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. Thank you, touch. You guys are great. Thank you. I was about to say feel, and I didn't feel right. But thank you, touch. Yes. So it's all the things that are in your physical space, right? Things that are already here. Like me, you can see me on camera, you can hear me, and you can probably feel the paper or the pen. Like hopefully you got some pens out. Yeah, feel is touch too. You're right. Yeah, you're definitely right. Um, um, but I just remembered it as touch, right? So it's all the same thing. So I appreciate you guys for giving me that little shove to help me out. But yes, so most people are victims to their outside world. Like last week, we talked about how we can either direct our attention from within, or we can be a victim of the attention from without, right? So a lot of the times, most people are sitting in a constant state of stress, anxiety, anger, depression, right? And especially when, my parents, they watch the news a lot, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys have some people in your life that are doing, excuse me, that are doing stuff like that, where they're watching the news and they're learning about, the crypto crash, because they don't understand market structure and how the media just talks about death and all of these terrible things that honestly, yes, they're there, but is that really what we want to be focusing on? I don't think so, right? Because I think, and most of the time they're doing that so that you are constantly in a state of fight or flight, and it causes you to stress about the things that you're seeing, the things that you're hearing on the TV, and then now your neural pathways are focused on stress, which then compounds into stressing about things in your own life, right? And then you're now thinking about, the next bills you have to pay, or figuring out whether or not you're going to get into this next school that you're applying to, or a job that you want, or anything like that. That's okay. That's okay, Chai. We hope that it gets better. Let's pray. Let's hope. Manifest the good signal for Chai, right? But yeah, so most people are focused on those five senses, and they don't quite understand that most of the thoughts that they have are unconscious, right? And focusing and understanding the six higher faculties allows you to direct your thoughts in a more conscious manner so that you're not being a victim to your old thought patterns or just the thought patterns of most of people in the world, right? Because a lot of the times, most people are in that constant state of stress, and that's simply from them not understanding how to direct their thoughts themselves, right? So the six higher faculties allow you to become aware first of the six higher faculties, and then you can start to be the watcher of your own thoughts. Okay, so when you're unconscious and you're just doing things that you would normally do, like, right, you wake up, you look at your phone, you check your Instagram, you check your maybe you watch news in the morning, or you read the morning paper, right? That is unconscious behavior because it's something that you've done for an extended period of time for probably most of your life. And what that does is it puts you in a constant state of unconscious thoughts because something outside of you is directing your attention, right? You're not reading the paper and then thinking about and analyzing the information from your own perspective. A lot of the times you're just reading it and then getting stressed out about the things that you're reading. And so that's a lot of unconscious behavior. But as soon as you start to understand the six higher faculties, you can become more aware of those things. And it's kind of like anything else. You got to build the habit of being the watcher of your own thoughts, right? So if something bad happens in my life, let's say somebody dies, right? I could look at that and then worry about my own mortality, or I could worry and stress about the family that is struggling because of that death, or I could instead be more intuitive, which is our higher faculty number one, intuition. I could watch myself start to get stressed out from the information that is being provided for me, aka the death of a friend or a family member. Um, And so I could choose to focus on the stress, or I could feel the stress of that situation, of that news, watch myself getting stressed, become more aware as to what the triggers are that cause that physical representation of a mental thought, right? Because everything starts from a thought. Okay, so your body doesn't start feeling things if not first generated through a thought coming from somewhere else or from within, right? So you get bad news, you start to stress, and then your body starts to feel that stress. So maybe your heartbeat goes up, you start sweating, you start getting really agitated, you start reacting to more things in your life. Maybe you're driving, you get more road rage, okay? And so instead of allowing yourself to react in those situations, what I want you to do is be the watcher, okay? And it's not an easy thing to do. And that's where intuition comes in, where you don't really, a lot of the times intuition is unconscious because it is a product of a habit that has been developed over time. Okay. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that because, before I started learning this information, right, I would, maybe I was in college, right? I went to Penn State. Maybe I fail a test, right? And so I fail a vocab quiz, and then I start stressing about my grades. And instead of focusing on the solution, which would be the intuitive response, I instead focus on the stress of that grade, which in reality, I have no control over because it's already over, it's already done, right? So that's my intuitive mind coming into factor two. Like, initially I would stress about it, and then maybe I'd go to the bar and drink and, and have a good time and then forget about it, right? And that's not an intuitive reaction or an intuitive response. That is a stress reaction. Okay, so basically what we want to do is before we respond or react in any form when it comes to something that, something negative that happens in your day, we want to think about that response, or we want to think about that reaction. And that's how you start to change your intuition from unconscious to conscious thought. Because a lot of the times, 95% of the thoughts that we have today are the same thoughts that we had yesterday in just another fashion. It just compounds on itself, and then you start thinking the same things over and over and over again, and they start to feel like that's you, but it's actually just a fraction of your mental processes, right? So a paradigm is simply a compounding of habits that become so unconscious that you start to believe that that's who you are. Okay, like in my past, I was addicted to drugs at a certain time. So a lot of the times I thought that I was an addict. And then those thoughts created me to become weak in situations where I would be tempted to do things like that. But in the reality it was just that first thought that created that unconscious stream of thoughts. Okay. If I were to stop myself, and this is what I did, I'm about 2 years clean right now. And it just came to a point where I started becoming more conscious and I started becoming more intuitive. And I started to realize that my stress response was a substance. Okay. I would stress and then I would relieve that stress by an immediate satisfaction. Okay, so I was focusing on the immediate satisfaction as opposed to the long term satisfaction, which is what intuition is applied to. And it's so important for us to understand that most of the thoughts that we have are unconscious. And what we think is intuition is actually just an old paradigm that has compounded into a something that we become used to. Um, and so thank you, Ty. I really appreciate you. I'm proud of myself too. not to not to get the ego in there, but I am proud of myself. But yeah, so understanding first that intuition, and let's get a definition of intuition real quick. Intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning, or a thing that one knows or considers likely from an instinctive feeling rather than a conscious reasoning. Right? So that definition actually says it all, because it says without the need for conscious reasoning. Right? So a lot of the times intuition is unconscious, but what we don't realize is that that unconscious intuition is actually hurting us. What we think is a good instinct is actually an old paradigm that is coming into effect because we become so used to making those mistakes that we think they're right. And I hope this isn't going over anybody's head, because it is a little wordy. But the important thing to understand is that we need to basically kill an old paradigm. We need to kill our old selves, our old ways of thinking, our old habits, our old neural pathways, our old patterns of thought, thinking, and action. And we need to instead start to look at ourselves and our regular thought patterns as something other than who we are. And that is the first point. That's the first, that was the first step that I needed to understand in order to actually change anything in my life. Because in reality, I thought of myself as an addict, and that was the problem. because that wasn't reality. That was a thought pattern that I developed over years of misuse. Okay. And so my intuition was tainted. It wasn't correct. And so I needed to first change that initial thought to no, I am not this. I'm actually that. And then understanding and going towards that space every single time that something happens, like if I get stressed, I just needed to rewrite that pattern to instead maybe I'll go for a run, or maybe I'll go and play with my dog who just made a bunch of noise down the steps. Or or really anything that is much more positive response to that initial stressor that caused the bad habit to compound on itself. And so intuition is really just consciously becoming aware of every single thought that you have. And the best way to start would be to, next time you find yourself getting stressed out, write it down. Find a pen, find a paper. Maybe you got your journal handy. I always got my journal on me. But what you could do is first write down all the feelings that you're having, and then start to connect the dots backwards to figure out what sparked that stress or what sparked that negativity. And then when you get to the source of the problem, you can replace the reactionary to um, a responsive effect or decision. Okay, so it's really just getting stressed, feeling the stress, allow yourself to feel it, write down what you're feeling, and then figure out why you ended up in that place, in that mental space. And that's how you really start to develop your intuition. Okay. And so that's going to be the first higher faculty. The second higher faculty is called imagination. And imagination is very, very powerful, especially if it's an imagination that you believe. And that's a very important aspect when it comes to imagination, because there's two ways that you can be imaginative. Okay. There are the daydreamers and the creators. Okay, I guess that's a good way to say it. Is a lot of people, and most people spend their days daydreaming, right? They're sitting at work, they're at their desk, and they're dreaming about a different life. Maybe they're dreaming about a vacation that they can't afford. Maybe they're dreaming about a different job that isn't in their physical reality. Maybe they're just thinking about maybe a movie that they watched and they put themselves into that space, because that was something that I certainly did with my imagination, to kind of withdraw from my reality in a way that focused in on a show that I was watching, and I would instead think of how I would act in that imaginative space, right? The imaginative reality. So that way of thinking is what most people do. What the 95% people do is they use imagination to withdraw themselves from their physical reality. Yes, but it is so much that it's they don't believe in the ability of that reality. They actually think of it as a fantasy. Okay, so you can think of and imaginate, or you can be imaginative of a um, a fantasy, or you can be imaginative of a future for yourself that you actually believe can happen. Yeah, right. Wolf of Wall Street was a really good one. It was, but that honestly, Ankachi, that was probably a good one for you, that you saw in your actual possible like future reality, because we are traders, and so watching something like Wolf of Wall Street, we could actually find tangible evidence that that future could happen, right? So there's two ways that you could have looked at Wolf of Wall Street. It could have been the fantasy imagination, or it could have actually been you believing and imagine and well, like um imagining, there we go, imagining that being your future, because we're traders. We've seen the possibility of, what we can do with that skill set. And so it could have been something where it was a good productive use of imagination, right? So for me, my current imagination that I go to all the time, and that's probably the best thing, is picking one imagination that can help help manifest the rest of your goals. So I could, I want to get a Ford Bronco. I want to get a mountain house in, Vermont or Montana or somewhere where there's very, a lot of snow. Um, I could focus on a bunch of little things that I want, or I could focus on one thing that's going to give me all of those things. And so for me, I'm constantly in a state of imagination and manifestation for a fully funded trading account of six figures and making 10K a month. And so that simple one step imagination and focusing on that every day, every day, every day, you start to actually build off of that initial imagination. So I would sit, I'd meditate and focus on my goal of making 10K a month, being a fully funded trader. And then through that meditation, you start with that initial first thought that is consistent every single time. But then in that meditation, your thoughts are always going to become stagnant, right? And that's the toughest thing with meditation starting out, is that a lot of the times your trains of thought is you're trying to focus on one thing, but then your mindset gets distracted, right? So initially I would focus on that fully funded account, but then my stressors would come on, and then I would think about the possibility of that not happening, and then I'd start stressing about my bills, and then I'd start stressing about where I'm going to live next because I was losing my place of residence. And so it was an unconscious use of imagination, right? It was something that I didn't quite believe in, and then I started focusing on all the possibilities that could happen if that didn't actually become my future. And so and this is really something that you can only grow by doing it consistently. So just keep going every single day, keep doing it. Yes, you're going to have thoughts that come in that distract you, but soon enough, and where I'm at right now, because I've been doing it for so consistently, and I'm so blessed to actually get this new state of consciousness. And I'm so, like, it's just so amazing, but it feels so good because I'll sit down and I meditate, and within 2 seconds I'm in the flow state. And that's simply because of meditating every single day for an entire year. Obviously I missed a week here, a day there, a month there, but I had enough consistency where I've developed those skills. And so I can focus on the fully funded trading account. And then instead of me focusing on the possibilities of it not happening or the stressors of my current situation, I focus on the fully funded account. And then from there, I'm like, oh, sick. Now I got all this money. Now I can get my Ford Bronco. Now I can pay off my debts. Now I can start a business. And then I can get my house in the mountains. And then I can do this and this. And then it becomes a domino effect in your favor where you start to consciously create thoughts that are a chain link from that initial imaginative goal, right? So find something that you can believe in that you'll get, focus on that. And if you get distracted thoughts, just bring yourself back to that initial thought, right? And that's the one thing that you need to do from the start is, you don't want to focus on the goal and then get distracted by the thought of that not happening, and then try to piggyback off the first goal into, for me, so like if I'm thinking about the fully funded trading account, and then I think about the fact that I haven't been profitable the last few days, I'm going to, trying to then think about the Ford Bronco isn't actually an alignment from the initial thought, right? I had a thought, I had a distraction, and then I tried to piggyback off the first thought, but my mind is still distracted. Okay, so initially, what I want you to do is just focus on that one thought and that one thought only. The entire time, that should be your only frame of thought. If you get distracted to something else, come back to that initial thought. Okay. And just building that skill of being able to get distracted and then come back and then distracted and then come back. Building that skill is so important. And once you develop that initial skill, then you can start to let your mind wander, right? So wandering while you're meditating is so helpful, but as long as it's in a chain reaction from the initial intentional thought, right? And so that's how you really start to develop that imagination to work in your favor, because most people think unconsciously and imagine fantasy. But what we want to do is imagine our future reality, our goals as our present. And that's something that I spoke about last week as well, where we want to be in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, right? So I'm not only thinking about my fully funded trading account, I'm thinking about how freaking stoked I'm going to be when I get that goal, right? So I manifest, I think about it, and then I'm just like sitting here like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then I just get so great, like so stoked out of my mind. And then that feeling of happiness, of accomplishment, of success, of abundance, right? Then I start to think about other things that are going to make me also feel abundant, feel successful, feel wealthy, feel full, So it's a lot about the feeling too. So imagination in the fantasy, you're not really feeling the possibilities in your physical reality. You're just feeling the distraction, the love of fictional reality, right? But for imagination in a manifestation process, we're focusing on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So the goal is already realized in our quantum field, and we're just manifesting it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And because thoughts have powers, and because thoughts manifest everything in our life, and everything that happens in our life comes back to a thought, we know that thinking about these things is going to manifest them in our physical reality, because everything first starts in the quantum field. Everything first starts as a thought. Like, and I'll give you a quick little example. Like, so yes, people get sick, right? Some people get sick. I don't get sick. Doesn't happen. I don't really, doesn't happen to me. But there are people that they get sick, right? They start to feel, maybe they wake up with a stuffy nose. And like, I wake up with a stuffy nose often just because, I don't know, maybe allergies. I'm not entirely sure. But I could wake up in the morning, have a stuffy nose, and then think, oh crap, I'm getting sick. And think about that. I just said, I am getting sick, right? So it wasn't the stuffy nose that got me sick. It was the thought that I am getting sick, right? And that's the misconception that a lot of people have. And that's where imagination starts, is always in a thought. So pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to your I am statements. I am sick, I am tired, I am worthless, I am poor, I am struggling. All of these, get them out. Get rid of them. Get rid of them right now, and start to become conscious of those I am statements, because changing those initially is going to change your imagination and your ability to imagine your feeling of the wish fulfilled. Okay? So that's imagination. Perception is going to be the next one. That's our third higher faculty. And I'm gonna look up the definition of that one too. just so that we get it down perfect. Okay, so perception is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. The state of being or process of becoming aware of something through the senses. Okay, so higher faculties, right? What I said was that we need to forget about the physical senses. But the higher faculties, especially perception, once we have the ability to withdraw from our senses, control our ability to be intuitive and imagine our future as our present, as soon as we get those two down, right? We're able to control our imagination, we're able to be intuitive of our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions. Then, since we have control on those thoughts, we're able to use our five physical senses because now we understand and look at them in a different way. Because we're able to control our thoughts from within and we're able to understand that our sight, that our five senses a lot of the times are lying to you. They're it's not so much that they're lying to you, but it's a thought habit, our thought patterns that use our five senses against us. But once we control our intuition and we control our imagination, we're able to then look at our five senses in a different way. And that's where perception comes in. Because perception is being able to use those five senses in your favor, be able to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. And so being able to control your thoughts, once you have that control, you're able to perceive our five senses in a different way. And so we know that when we feel stress sometimes, that's not actually stress in our physical reality. That's an old paradigm that was triggered by something in our physical reality that has been a trigger for us over and over and over again during our years and years and years of unconscious thought processes. And thank you, I got you. Yeah, so the but yeah, so we're able to perceive our senses in a different way. So we start to realize, like, okay, that feeling of stress was my old paradigm lying to me, thinking that this is actually my reality, but it's actually an old habit that has manifested as a stress feeling, and so I'm actually reacting as opposed to responding. And perception is a response. It's not a reaction, right? It's a something happens, we think about it, we contemplate what is the right decision, and then we decide the one that helps us the most. And that's how you develop your perception. So you first want to get intuitive. You want to first be able to control your imagination into something that you believe, and then you're able to then understand what part of your senses is lying to you and what is actually something that supports your goals and drive and your future feeling or your future wishes fulfilled in the current present. Okay, so that is perception. The next one is reason. And, it's kind of funny because as soon as you get down intuition and you get imagination down, the rest of the higher faculties come easy. It's those first two that are the toughest to develop because we're so focused on fantastical fantasy imagination. We're so focused on thinking that our intuition is correct, but it's actually an unconscious intuition that is 95% of the time based on a stress response. But once we start to control our ability to feel, thought, think, and control our stressors so that we actually stress and become sad and angry and negative less, we control our thoughts, we control our words, we control our I am statements, we control our imagination and what we see in our future and make sure that it's something that we can believe is actually going to happen, then perception, reason, will, and memory are easy, right? So let me define reason. So reason is a cause, explanation, or justification for an action or event. So a reason is actually a reflection, it's a responsive um, effect to an action or event, right? So instead of, because we've developed our intuition, our imagination, and our perception, we can look at events in a different way, right? So let's say we see news of a police shooting. We could look at that in a negative way, which obviously it is, but instead, our explanation for that event or our re or our okay, so the other one is the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. Right. That's what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so we could look at that police shooting as a terrible thing, right? Because it is. It we that is not a debate. It is definitely a terrible thing. But what we could focus on is our process of of logical reasoning, right? So instead of looking at it as a negative thing, we could use our conductive reasoning to look at it and be so thankful that it wasn't us, it wasn't our family, it wasn't our significant others that went through that situation. And so putting ourselves in a state of gratitude is conductive reasoning. It's using our the information provided to us. We can look at it in a negative way, which yes, there are negative aspects of it, but a lot of the times I choose not to look at the negative and kind of flip it and start to focus on the positive of those situations. And the positive being that we are safe, our families are safe, and the people we love are safe. And then we send prayers to the people that are affected, right? So we show love to them and gratitude for us, as opposed to anger and negativity to any given aspect of any situation. Okay, so that's how we start to use our reasoning to, take information, unpack it, think about it, decide whether it's something that we want to focus on in a bad way or focus on in a good way, and then we decide how to react or how to respond based on that reasoning that we've developed through our thought process of utilizing information and deciding what to focus on. Okay, so that is going to be our reasoning. Then we have our will. And let's define will. And will can be used in different ways. You can talk about our free will, or we can focus on our I will statements. Okay. So we can focus on the fact that we all have free will, right? A lot of us are a lot more free than others consciously, right? We're technically in a free country, technically, but the reality is that most people do not have free will, or they don't access their free will because they are succumbed to the system, or they believe that they're in a situation where they're being supported. So they believe they have free will, right? They're able to live wherever they want to live. Um, they can buy whatever they want to buy. Um, they can have their weekends to themselves, their nights to themselves. They can raise their family in every or any way they want to, right? But the reality is that that is not actually freedom, right? Yes, they have weekends off. Yes, they have time with their family. Yes, they can kind of live the way they want to live within reason, right? And that's another higher faculty, within reason, right? So people believe that they have free will because they're given these time frames where they have time to themselves. But I'll relate that to prison. Like people in prison, they get an hour of rec time, but that's not freedom. That's not freedom at all. We're supposed to spend 5 days working and then 2 days off, but the reality is that we work 5 days, then we go home and we're tired, so all we have time for is to get the kids to bed, then cook dinner, and then get ourselves to bed, and by the time we wake up, we gotta go back to work. And then Saturday and Sunday, because we had no time outside of our work schedule during the week, one of those days is spent doing laundry, cleaning the house, taking the kids to soccer practice, going to games. So in reality, we have 1 day out of 7 days off. And so that's like having 1 hour out of the day to ourselves, right? We have 1 day out of the week to ourselves, and we think that's freedom, but that's not actually freedom. It's just a a modern form of slavery. We're slave to the system, thinking that we have free will, but we truly don't if we're in that frame of existence. And that's why I will never, ever, ever get a full time job. And I respect people who do it. If you need it, if you have to pay your bills, that's fantastic. But what I want you to think about is this full time job going to withstand me and my sanity throughout my entire life? Am I going to be happy at the end of my life because I worked for someone else? Or should I use my free will and my I will statements to say, I am working here, but I will push my purpose. I will pursue my personal dream, right? And that is another way to use will as well, because we have the free will, some more than others, right? But those of us that are in situations where the free will isn't actually something that we can act on in the ways that we want to, right? Because we're so busy 6 days out of the week. What we can do is, instead of focusing on the lack of freedom or the lack of free will that we have right now because of the responsibilities of life and our situation, we can use our imagination to say I will statements and focus on something that you will do now, tomorrow, or the next day. And it's so funny that it's that simple. You just have to focus on something that you believe in, something that you know you will do, and saying something like, I am this, I am that, or I will do this, I will do that, are extremely, extremely powerful statements, right? So it doesn't matter what situation you're in right now, but if you focus on the feeling of the wish fulfilled and saying, saying that I am now a fully funded trader, or I will spend my days, spend my free hours, instead of watching Netflix, um, instead of going out on the weekends, I will focus on my future and take that extra class, or I'll study that extra half hour, or I'll practice this new trading strategy and see if it works. And if that doesn't work, I will do another strategy until I find the solution. The until fashion is very key as well, because you could say, I will be a fully funded trader, or you could say, I will not stop until I become a fully funded trader. it's so much more powerful to say the until statement, because I will do this until I get that, or even beyond. It doesn't even have to be just until that situation, but it is very good to use that into practice. Um, and so that is our fifth higher faculty, is will. Then our sixth higher faculty is memory. And memory is defined as the faculty, and the definition literally says the faculty, the faculty by which the mind stores and remembers information. And so memory is another one of those things that a lot of the times it's skewed. It is, we remember what we want to remember, and then we forget what we don't want to remember, right? So a lot of the times, again, these higher faculties are things that are unconscious for 95% of the people. Memory, a lot of the times, is unconscious as well, right? So think about, like, I have a memory of going to the beach with the family, right? And so I could do anything I want to with that memory. I could focus on the fact that I got lost in an elevator once when I was 2 years old, or I could focus on the memory of, my dad building sand, like literal cars out of sand for us, right? So memory has this power to skew our perception of the events which are being remembered. And so a lot of the times people want to remember the good without thinking about the bad. And that is the recipe for disaster, especially when it comes to trading or educating or learning a new skill. Um, I could sit back and I could remember the days where I was profitable and feel good about it. But if I don't remember the bad days that I wasn't profitable, am I actually going to become more profitable moving forward? We have this ability to forget things that don't feel good to us. And even if there's a situation where, maybe something bad happened in your life, but you've dug that so deep into your brain that you have eschewed your memory of the event and tried to remember it in a different way, remember it in a good way. But, in some fashions, maybe that's good. They say that it's not never good to bury your feelings, right? You always want to express your feelings in one way or another. Writing down is a really good one, but your memory has the ability to teach you, and the ability to help you learn from your mistakes and learn from your failures, learn from your lessons, and push yourself forward in a constructive way. And most people want to forget the bad things that happened. For me, because I've become so aware of my situation, I love thinking about those days where I was strung out. I love thinking about those days that I did really bad trades, right? Because I'm not getting stressed about those moments. It's always how you look at it. Like, I could look at days where I failed and days where I blew demo accounts and days where I went like a grand or two in the hole when I was trading. I could look at it and get stressed about it, or I could look at it as a lesson. It could be a memory of a failure, or it could be a memory of a lesson. And so we need to learn how to control our memory and use it in our favor. Okay, and that's um, a really good practice to get into. And a lot of the times, these six higher faculties, they're difficult to wrap your head around. So what I would impose you guys to do is to focus on intuition, get that one down, then focus on imagination and manifesting your desires. And then you'll notice how the last four, perception, reason, will, and memory, they just become so much easier moving forward. you know? And I think that would be the best way for anybody trying to create more abundance in your life is to focus on these six higher faculties, but take them one at a time, and I think intuition is one of the most powerful ones because it starts and kind of accesses all the rest, right? Because as soon as you become conscious of one of them, the rest of them become easy to become conscious about. But because we spend 95% of our thoughts thinking about the same things we thought about yesterday, 95% of our thoughts are then unconscious because they are just repetitive thoughts that happened the day before, the week before, the month before, the year before, right? There's people that have been stressing, or some people have personality traits that were developed from an event that happened 6 years ago. Maybe they had an abusive parent, right? And now maybe they had an abusive father or an abusive mother, and maybe they had the abusive father. No, let's not even talk about that. That's a terrible topic. Let's say they were attacked by a dog as a kid, right? They could now, maybe they're terrified of all the dogs because of that event that happened 6 years ago, right? That's unconscious thought patterns that have been developed for years and years and years. And now they're terrified of a little chihuahua when they're a 180-pound person, right? And that is not using your higher faculties in your favor. And it's an unconscious pattern that has been developed into a unreasonable fear, and a lot of people have these things because they're spending their lives unconscious. So first, focus on anytime you have a negative feeling, write down all the feelings that you have, and then piggyback to connect the dots back to the initial thought that caused the feeling, and then unpack why that happened. And that is the best way to start getting yourself to be more conscious in your life. Dang. Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, because I was attacked, it took my sister about giving up Chachi. Yeah, that's awesome, and now you can Chachi your best friends. Like, that's amazing. It's crazy how that happens. It's just a lot of the times these fears, these stressors, these anxieties that we have come from an unreasonable and an unrealistic starting point. So connecting those dots backwards is really helpful to get back to that first thought that caused the emotion or the first event that caused the emotion, and then figure out how you can fix it. Okay. So that is what I have for you guys today. Those are the six higher faculties. I hope you guys enjoyed the call. And I hope you guys learned something. And I hope that you take this information and you become more conscious in your thoughts. And as soon as you become more conscious in your thoughts, you're going to feel better because you're going to stop focusing on the negativity and focusing on the positivity. You're going to start using your imagination in a positive and productive way and become in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, knowing that your desires are already realized in the quantum field. And now you just have to take actions on a daily basis to get yourself to realize those goals into the physical reality. Okay. So I really, really appreciate you guys being on this call. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Sunday. Okay. I just want to thank God for this amazing call, for these words that just flew right through me. And it felt so good. I love doing these calls, and I love teaching the tribe. And I really hope that you guys take this information and start to put it into practice. And let's just grow. Let's go crazy. Let's make those trades. Let's make those profits. Let's grow. Let's achieve those goals, and let's become better than we are today. All right. So thank you guys, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Go Birds. Thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate your kind words, guys. You guys are the best support system I could ever ask for in this field, and it's amazing. So have a good one. Peace. Go Birds. Take it easy. Adios. Love you guys.